The Muslim woman and her resurrection. Death took her to spiritual mysteries and a terrifying warning. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to explore a mysterious and strange story, the story of a Muslim woman who experienced passing and was given a chance to return from the other side. During this journey, she faced terrifying secrets and mystical sights that not many could imagine. Her story will make you reflect on the mysteries of the spiritual world, things that few people are aware of. Join me as we embark on this journey and uncover the miraculous things she went through, from resurrection to the terrifying secrets from beyond. Layla's resurrection, a warning from the other side. Layla al-Faruq was a strong and devoted Muslim woman, living a simple yet meaningful life in the ancient city of Damascus. Each day, she spent most of her time teaching young students the Arabic language, helping them gain a deeper understanding of her country's rich traditions and culture. Layla was not just a teacher but also a model mother, lovingly caring for her family, especially her 10-year-old son, Sami. She always made time for him, teaching him life's valuable lessons and guiding him to become a responsible and kind young man. Layla's life seemed perfect, with a happy family and a fulfilling job. But everything she knew about life would be changed forever when an unexpected event occurred. One day, Layla was struck by a mysterious illness, the cause of which no one knew, nor was there a cure in sight. In a short time, her health deteriorated rapidly, preventing her from continuing her beloved work or caring for her family as she once did. All hope was lost when Layla suddenly passed away, leaving her family and community in deep sorrow and confusion. Layla's passing left the entire community stunned and heartbroken. No one in her family, from her husband to her closest friends, could believe that such a strong and devoted woman like Layla could leave so suddenly. Everything seemed to be turned upside down, as the laughter and warmth she brought were no longer present. However, her passing was not just the departure of a mother and wife. When Layla's heart stopped beating, a mysterious and strange story began to unfold. It seemed that some kind of power was rising from her spirit, making Layla's departure not just an end, but the beginning of a new journey one no one could have predicted. Strange phenomena began to emerge, and people in the community started to realize that Layla might still be present in some form, influencing the lives of those who loved her. When Layla passed away, her soul seemed to fall into an indistinct space, where everything around her was unclear and intangible. She felt no pain, but there was an overwhelming sense of tranquility that enveloped her, as though she were in a place completely separated from the world she had known. There were no sounds, no disturbances, only an eerie stillness, like an infinite void she could not fully comprehend. It felt as though she were suspended in an invisible space, where all her senses faded, and time itself seemed to come to a halt. A lightness, a sense of freedom, and an indescribable peace filled her being, as though her soul had been released from the burdens of the material world and the ties of earthly life. She no longer cared for the body she had left behind, nor did she think about the worries or joys she had once known, only the absolute serenity that she couldn't put into words. It was a feeling unlike anything she had experienced in her life before. Suddenly, a powerful light pierced through the darkness, like a flash of lightning illuminating the boundless space. Layla felt herself being drawn toward it, an invisible force pulling her toward the source of the light. As she moved through this mystical realm, she no longer felt any worry or fear. It was as though she was moving naturally, effortlessly, in a space where there were no boundaries. Everything around her became surreal and hazy. The sky above was dim, but the light from the source remained faint and ethereal, not fully bright, yet not completely dark either. Clouds drifted lazily above, shimmering like mist, unclear whether they were moving or had been still for ages. Layla couldn't comprehend where she was, unable to identify the place, but one thing was certain: this was not the paradise she had been taught about in religious lessons. This place was unlike any mystical image she had ever imagined, and there was a deep, profound difference in the atmosphere, as if it wasn't a realm for the souls of the redeemed. As Layla walked through this hazy space, she sensed a strange presence that she couldn't explain. It felt as though an invisible force surrounded her, making her feel as if she couldn't separate herself from this place, even though everything around her was unclear and unfamiliar. Although she couldn't see clearly, She could sense something, whether it was a soul or some invisible force watching her and guiding her through this space. The atmosphere around her was dense and silent, so much so that every step Layla took seemed to echo in an empty, suffocating void. She didn't feel fear, but there was a deep sense of the presence around her, as if she were walking through a door into another world, where there was no distinction between life and transition. Then, from within the thick fog, a figure suddenly appeared, slowly becoming clearer in the dim light. This figure was a man dressed in pure white, radiating a soft light from his body, as though he were a part of the very mystical space around him. His face was serene, with clear-cut features and a gaze full of power, deep and knowing. The feeling Layla could perceive from his eyes was one of eternity, as if he could see everything, all life, all souls in this world. The man, with a voice that echoed like a whisper in the air, introduced himself as Azrael, the angel of death in Islamic legend. However, his appearance and presence were entirely different from what Layla had been taught in religious teachings. He was not a terrifying figure, but one whose presence was both gentle and majestic, making Layla feel as if she was facing a power greater than life itself, beyond both life and the transition beyond it. Azrael looked at Layla with eyes full of compassion and tenderness, as if he could see straight through to her very soul. Every time he gazed at her, Layla felt a sense of soothing comfort, as if all her worries and fears were melting away under the weight of his gaze. His words echoed, not just from his lips, but through a deeper connection, as though they were being directly transmitted into her mind and spirit. Layla, you have crossed a threshold that few can ever see, a place only special souls can pass through. His voice was gentle, but firm. But you must understand, not everything you see here is the truth. There are things you are not yet ready to comprehend, secrets you will have to face in the future. Layla stood there, overwhelmed by a wave of emotions, like a rising tide crashing over her. Everything around her seemed to blur, fading into a thick, dense fog. She shook her head, trying to understand Azrael's words, but instead of feeling clearer, everything only grew more vague and harder to grasp. The sense of being lost overtook her, as though she were standing in a space with no foundation, no beginning or end. Fear rose within her, strong and unexplainable. So where am I? Where is this? Am I gone? Her voice trembled, catching in her throat, unable to conceal the panic and fear that consumed her. Each question echoed in her mind, but there was no answer. She couldn't accept the reality that she had left this world, that she had transitioned. All the memories, everything she had loved, seemed to be slowly pulled into an invisible abyss. She looked around, seeing only shadowy figures, and the overwhelming sense of loneliness drowned out every other feeling. What Azrael said only heightened her confusion, making her feel as if she were falling into a bottomless pit, with no escape, no light. Azrael slowly moved closer, the light from his form glittering through the misty space, causing everything around Layla to fade. "You're not really gone, Layla," he explained, his voice warm and comforting. "You've just temporarily left this world, like a momentary pause in the flow of time. There's still much for you to do, many people to meet, and lessons to learn. This is just a temporary doorway." Layla couldn't completely understand what Azrael was saying, but a strange sense of calm began to spread through her mind. It felt as if she were in a place not of death, but of transition, where everything could still change. But then, the light surrounding Azrael grew brighter and stronger, as if its power was breaking through the darkness, and a faint, cold breeze drifted through the stillness. Azrael turned back to look at Layla with a serious and powerful gaze, as if wanting to convey to her an important truth that could not be overlooked. His voice rang out, sharp and clear, carrying a slight threat. "However, there is one thing you must take with you. A warning you must listen to, and if you don't follow it, it will change the lives of everyone around you." His words wrapped around Layla's heart like invisible chains, making it hard for her to breathe. These weren't just warnings, they felt like an invisible burden she had to bear. They were a reminder that in life, some responsibilities are greater than both life and death, and she is the one carrying that mission. This feeling hit Layla like a blow to her mind, making it impossible to escape. She felt a strange torment, as if standing between two worlds, where each decision would lead to consequences she couldn't foresee. Azrael's words echoed like a warning bell in her, reverberating and weighing heavily on her. Azrael led Layla through a series of mystical, eerie, and haunting sights, where human souls seemed to be torn between two worlds, the world of the living and the realm of passing. They walked through vast spaces, endless dark fields where everything appeared blurry as if time had stopped. The souls wandered in a fog, unable to find a way out. Faint shadows swirled into invisible vortexes, drifting away from their families, friends, and the lives they once knew. These souls had nowhere to return to, no light to guide them. Occasionally, dark, malevolent specters emerged, twisted, monstrous entities guiding the lost souls into even more perilous places where they would face eternal sins and suffering. These souls were manipulated, driven, unable to escape the terrifying spiral they were caught in. Azrael stopped and turned to Layla, his eyes filled with centuries of patience and wisdom. "There is a truth that the material world does not know," he began, his voice grave. "These souls are not simply trapped because of their sins or wrongdoings during their lives. There is a greater force at work, a conspiracy that is subtly manipulating this world, manipulating both humanity and the universe itself. These souls are being pulled into a cycle they cannot escape, influenced by malevolent shadows and dark entities from another realm. This is creating an unimaginable chaos, and if left unchecked, it could plunge millions into an even greater catastrophe." Layla stood there, feeling as if everything around her began to spin. She tried to grasp Azrael's words, but they felt like powerful waves, pushing her back every time she tried to move toward them. Her mind was caught in a chaotic tangle of confusion and fear. She couldn't imagine such a dark force could exist within the very world she had lived in. A dark, invisible, yet powerful plot, quietly infiltrating every corner of life, and once it achieved its goal, everything would collapse. A sense of helplessness rose in Layla's heart, but at the same time, a small flame unexpectedly ignited within her. This feeling wasn't one of fear, but of intense awakening. A sense that something could be done to change everything, that she was not just an anonymous person swept along by the current of fate. A feeling that, even though she had crossed the threshold between life and the afterlife, her fate was still not yet written. Layla didn't know exactly what she could do, but she felt that now she had a mission. An undeniable awakening, calling her to act in order to stop the darkness that was creeping everywhere. This feeling made her heart beat faster, and she knew that no matter how challenging or dangerous the road ahead might be, she would not turn back. Layla listened to Azrael's words with a growing sense of panic and confusion. The souls that were being invaded and manipulated, the evil creatures lurking in the darkness, influencing the living without anyone realizing the danger. The weight of these revelations pressed heavily on her chest, but she couldn't grasp the full extent of it. Azrael's words about the dark entities and their plans filled her with dread, but there was nothing she could do to stop it. She could feel the chilling fear spreading through her as she thought about the unseen forces that were slowly taking control of the world, unnoticed by those who still lived. Suddenly, she felt a warmth wash over her, a sensation of life returning to her limbs, and the sound of her breath filling her ears. Her body felt heavy, but she could feel her senses awakening. As her eyes fluttered open, the bright light from the hospital lamps blinded her momentarily, making her squint. She looked around and saw her family gathered around her, her mother, her brother, and several doctors, all speaking in hushed tones. The familiar surroundings of the hospital bed were comforting, but the memory of her strange encounter with Azrael, and the terrifying visions of the spirit world, lingered in her mind like a haunting nightmare. Layla couldn't believe what she had just experienced. She raised her hand to touch her forehead, feeling the cold sweat that was slowly trickling down her face. It felt as though everything she had just gone through was nothing more than a bizarre dream, a product of her tired mind. She tried to sit up, but her body felt so weak that she was forced to lie back down. Every movement felt heavy, almost impossible. Her head spun as she tried to piece together the events of the encounter with Azrael in her mind. She shut her eyes, trying to block out the images and the overwhelming fear, but every time she opened her eyes, everything was still vivid, as if it had just happened. She wanted to convince herself that it was all just a dream, that none of it was real. But no matter how hard she tried, deep within her, She knew that this meeting wasn't just a figment of her imagination. She couldn't deny the feelings, the strange, almost otherworldly sensations she had experienced. She had felt the presence of something beyond, a world she didn't fully understand, and Azrael's words continued to echo in her mind, a solemn warning that she could not ignore. She had seen and felt things that no one else could, and whether she accepted it or not, she knew these experiences would change her life forever. The warning that Azrael had given her echoed in Layla's mind, reverberating like a constant reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond the veil of reality. Every word spoken by the angel of death was etched into her consciousness, urging her to not forget the darkness that sought to consume the world. She couldn't shake the images of the trapped souls, the sinister creatures hiding in the shadows, and the hidden, malevolent forces working in the background. It was clear now that what she had witnessed was not some meaningless vision, but a dire warning. If she didn't act, the peaceful world she loved would soon fall victim to these dark entities, and the tranquility people took for granted would be destroyed in silence. Layla felt an intense, uncontrollable urge building up inside her, like a burning fire that she couldn't extinguish. She couldn't stay silent knowing that the world was facing a terrible danger that no one could see. The images, the strange scenes that Azrael had shown her, echoed in her mind, refusing to fade. Every soul she had seen, every ghostly figure that drifted past her, every dark entity hiding in the corners of this world, all of them were undeniable proof of the truth she needed to share with others. But she knew that no matter how much she tried to explain, no one would believe her. What she had witnessed was too far beyond what ordinary people could comprehend. She could already imagine the skeptical looks, the laughter of those around her, but deep down, she understood that she couldn't refuse this responsibility. She had to share it. She had to make others aware that the threat was real, whether they believed her or not. Each scene she had witnessed was not a mere figment of her imagination, it was a warning from another world, a warning that she could not ignore. Layla knew that, no matter how difficult or lonely this journey might be, she had to keep fighting to awaken those around her. She could not live in silence knowing the truth was out there, unnoticed by others. The fear and anxiety overwhelmed Layla as she thought about her loved ones and closest friends. She wondered how they would react when she told them about these evil forces she had witnessed. Would they believe what she had gone through, or would they simply dismiss it as a nightmare after a severe illness she had endured? Each question only deepened her sense of unease, making her feel lost and uncertain about where to start. She didn't want to be seen as crazy or delusional, but at the same time, she couldn't ignore what she had witnessed. The souls, the ghosts, the dark entities that Azrael had guided her through were a part of a world she had never known before. But what terrified her even more was the realization that it wasn't just her who could see these things. The danger was present all around everyone, yet they had no idea. Despite the fear and worry, Layla knew she couldn't live in this haunting state forever. She couldn't continue to let the world live in ignorance of the tremendous danger that was quietly looming. She couldn't just stand by while these evil forces continued to infiltrate and manipulate everything around her. She knew she had to act. Even though doing so might lead her to face skepticism, ridicule, or even alienation from those around her, Layla understood that it was a responsibility she couldn't refuse. She had to help them realize that the world wasn't just what they saw, but there were also mystical and dangerous things lurking, waiting. And if she didn't speak out, if she didn't try to share what she had seen, then no one would have a chance to prepare and protect themselves from those dark forces. With unwavering determination in her heart, Layla knew that what she had experienced was not just a strange dream, but a mission she was meant to fulfill. The feelings of confusion, fear, and anxiety that had once overwhelmed her had completely vanished, replaced by a clarity and a powerful resolve. Everything within her had become clear, she no longer felt afraid of what she had witnessed. In fact, it now served as a reminder of the responsibility she could not ignore. The images of Azrael, the souls, the ghosts, and the dark entities still lingered in her mind, but instead of causing her fear, they had become a source of invisible strength. She sensed that she had been granted a rare opportunity, a special ability that not everyone would ever receive. The warnings Azrael had given her no longer seemed vague or cryptic. They were now clear instructions, like a map leading her through a new journey, a journey she had to share with the world. Layla no longer hesitated or doubted. She understood that this was the path she had to take, even if some people wouldn't believe her, or might even think she was crazy. But she could not remain silent because deep inside her, she knew there was no one else but her who could bring this awakening. Even if not everyone would believe, she had to tell her story, to share the warnings Azrael had conveyed. She had to do so for the future of those around her, for the safety of the world she had once been a part of. Each time Layla shared her story, she was met with skepticism and doubtful stares from those around her. The challenging questions, mocking smiles, or distant gazes couldn't erase the unshakable conviction within her. She knew that most people couldn't easily believe in the strange and terrifying things she had experienced, because what she had witnessed was beyond their comprehension. The dark visions, the souls imprisoned in darkness, the malevolent forces exploiting humanity's ignorance to carry out their wicked plans, these were all reality to Layla, but to others, they were merely fantastical tales or vague imaginings. Yet deep inside, Layla understood she couldn't stop. Each time she saw the suffering souls, each time she felt the presence of those dark forces waiting to strike, the more she realized that if no one awakened, everything would be swallowed up in endless darkness. A world ravaged by ignorance and fear, where innocent beings were manipulated by invisible powers, would be the inevitable consequence if no one stood up to warn others. With each retelling, Layla wasn't just battling doubt, she was also fighting her own fear. She feared that, despite knowing so many truths, her warnings would fall on deaf ears. But she also knew that if she didn't speak out, if she didn't make others aware of the dangers lurking around them, she would live with the fear and torment of silence. She couldn't stay silent, couldn't live with the haunting thought that everything she knew would remain buried. Because in her heart, Layla knew this was her mission, to bring light to the darkest corners and help lost souls find their way back. Layla not only shared her story with friends, family, and colleagues, but she also spent a lot of time explaining in detail everything she had experienced. She began by recounting the moments she faced Azrael, feeling the coldness and weight of his presence, and gradually led them through the terrifying scenes she had witnessed. She described the lost souls, the malevolent spirits quietly manipulating human lives, causing those who are living to remain unaware. Every detail Layla shared was imbued with her concern and determination to warn others about the existence of unseen forces subtly affecting their lives. She also told them that awareness is crucial, not only to protect oneself but also to maintain peace and safety within the community. Although she understood that she might be seen as crazy or delusional, Layla's deep belief in her mission prevented her from staying silent. She felt that if she didn't speak out, everything she had witnessed would be in vain, and the world would never recognize the dangers lurking from these invisible forces. Layla hoped that, through every word she spoke, others would gradually become aware of the truth not only about the spiritual realm but also about how these malevolent forces can subtly influence human actions and decisions. She understood that these forces didn't always manifest clearly but often hid beneath layers of enchantment, making it easy for those who were not vigilant to be drawn in without even realizing it. These dark spirits did not only manipulate what occurred in the unseen world but also directly affected the actions and thoughts of people, causing them to stray from their true path, hurting themselves and those around them. She believed that not everyone would understand right away, but she also knew there were those who would be willing to open their hearts and minds to listen. Those who were ready to hear and feel the truth hidden within her warnings would find a new path, a light guiding them out of the darkness. This was their chance to change the way they saw life, to rise above, take control of their fate, and not be swept into the chaos that these dark spirits were plotting to weave. She wished for others to become more aware of the power these invisible forces held, so they could protect themselves from their influence and live a life of clarity and purpose. Layla understood that the battle she was facing was not one that could be fought with words or simple actions. It was an invisible war, a spiritual conflict waged between two powerful forces, light and darkness. Light was not just the spiritual values she believed in, the faith in goodness and love, but also the strength from the souls seeking salvation, those who yearned to be freed from the shackles of the material world. Darkness, on the other hand, represented the evil forces, the shadowy creatures trying to invade the world, manipulating souls and leading people to live in ignorance and fear. Layla had come to realize that she was not only fighting battles in the physical world but was also engaged in a much larger universe, where every soul played an important role. She could feel the presence of other souls in this journey, and more, she realized that those around her were not just friends and family, but allies in this war. Although the battle may unfold in silence, within thoughts and invisible sensations, Layla knew she would never be alone. She was not only supported by herself, but also by those who stood with her, sharing in the pain and ready to fight for a brighter world. Layla didn't simply come back to resume her old life. She felt that her resurrection held a deeper meaning, a sacred mission she had to fulfill. She was no longer just a loving mother to her young son Sami, a devoted wife to her family. Now, she had become someone who carried within her the mission of awakening lost souls and opening the world's eyes to dangers they hadn't yet realized. Layla knew she had been entrusted with a great responsibility, and no matter where life would take her, she could never return to her old path. She could no longer live a peaceful life with her small family because she had witnessed things that only those who had crossed the boundaries between life and passing could truly understand. With strong faith and unwavering courage, Layla is ready to face any challenges ahead. She knows that this journey is not just a battle with external darkness but also an inner struggle, where she must confront doubts, fears, and criticisms from those who do not understand her mission. However, she is determined not to give up. Layla understands that her mission is not only to save herself, but also to awaken and guide those around her to realize that they too can overcome the darkness in their own lives. Her journey from departure to rebirth is just beginning. Every step Layla takes will be a step forward in the fight against passivity, ignorance, and fear, a never-ending journey to bring light to the world. The story of Layla, the profound awakening she went through, and the warning from the other side of existence is not just a memory or a strange anecdote. It has become a symbol for the invisible mysteries in the universe that sometimes we cannot comprehend or see, yet they always exist, silently present all around us. What Layla witnessed after crossing the threshold of departure was not just a personal lesson but a powerful message for all of us that the world we live in is not only what the naked eye can see. Deep in the darkness, in the hidden corners of daily life, there exist invisible forces that can affect the fate of humans in ways we cannot imagine. Layla's story reminds us of the fragility of reality, the power of unexplored mysteries, and the invisible connections between the living world and the unseen world. This compels us to reflect and reassess our lives, to open our eyes and become more aware of the things we often overlook or don't believe in. Thank you for following the moving story of a Muslim woman who experienced passing and was given the chance to return from the other side. Her story is a powerful reminder of the existence of the mystical and the unseen forces surrounding us. I hope that through these reflections, you will feel the strength of faith, perseverance, and awakening within each person, helping us live more fully and cherish every moment. Once again, thank you for following along, and if this story has touched your heart, don't forget to share it and leave your thoughts.